Hey guys, I'm Fuller.
And Jonah.
This is Off the Line. Today we're going to talk about some stuff close to home, Louisville City. We're going to hit on the Premier League, check up on the title race, along with some matches that we followed along with this weekend. And then we're going to finish things up with an MLS roundup. So let's get started. Like we said, close to home, Louisville City and Cameron Lancaster are parting ways. That's obviously a very big blow to the team. He was our leading goal scorer this year, set the USL record for goals. Did not play in the final game this season. Had, I believe, an ankle, knee injury, something like that. It's just a big loss for the team, going forward. I don't know how they're going to get someone who can recreate it. I mean, he had a historic season. They did sign someone named Lucky Msampo, I think was how you pronounce his name. Don't quote me on that. I'm just really concerned, I guess, for Louisville City attacking-wise. They still have Brian Ownby, which is great. Brian Ownby's my favorite player.
Nice striker, though.
Yeah, he's more of like a 10. And they Luke Spencer, I believe is still there, but loss of Ilya Illich. Our attack force is going to look kind of depleted next year.
Yeah.
I'm just a little worried.
It gives John Hackworth a chance to kind of like give his own spice and his own flair to this team, but it is concerning in the immediate term. So it'll just be interesting to kind of see what moves they make going into the next season, what they can kind of pull in, what John Hackworth. He's been a coach in the MLS. He's been a coach in the U.S. youth system. So we'll see if any of those links can pay off and see what kind of moves he can make.
And I think also going forward, at least for Lancaster, it is a smart move for him.
Absolutely.
Just the way the USL and MLS are set up. The USL, in my opinion, the way everything is, it's never going to be the destination for top talent. And for a lot of MLS teams, they're looking for a striker. They're looking for someone who can bag goals. And while he does have an injury history with him, I believe he's had 2 ACL surgeries now.
Yeah.
It's not a bad gamble for a lot of teams. Now, what does concern me is I have heard some talk that he might go to FC Cincy, which I wouldn't say it'd be hurtful. I mean, I can't fault the man for turning down an MLS contract, but I'd rather him go to Nashville, which is where he's been linked with too.
Right.
I don't know. I'm very upset we're not going to have Cam next year. I think he's been hands down our best player last season and for most of the season before.
Yeah, definitely on the second half of the season before as well. He was huge for us. So hopefully we can find somebody, whether it's within our squad or bringing somebody that can replace that or bring it to a better level.
So moving on in the Premier League, Arsenal probably I'd say is the biggest story today, besides the Liverpool United game, which we'll get into in a little bit. But Arsenal lost their first game since August, snapped their 22-game unbeaten streak. And I don't necessarily think this is the end for, Unai Emery's men. I think that this is just a small stub towards top 4. I definitely think they can still challenge for the title. I don't think losing to a new Southampton team because new manager, new tactics, which is also interesting because it's Ralph Hasenhüttl from Leipzig, and he was their manager 2016 to May of this year. So he's a high-level manager. If you're familiar with Leipzig, you know that they started off at the bottom of Germany, and at one point in time they were leading last year the title race. So it doesn't surprise me that this Southampton team beat Arsenal. I think that happens a lot of times with teams as they get a new manager and they have a little bit of a hot streak for a couple games until the Premier League kind of figures out how to adjust to that man's tactics. But, one of my favorite players scored the winner today, Chaz Austin. Great to see him back out there. I don't say make it sound like he's injured. Just great to see him on the score sheet.
Yeah.
Always been a big fan of him.
Well, I just think that it'll be interesting to see how Arsenal can respond to this because we've seen them put together results almost consistently over the past, how long was it? Well, when did you say the last?
22 games.
Yeah, 22 games. So they know how to put together results consistently. But now we're going to see how they can bounce back from a loss after being on a streak like that. So we can see if they'll be able to bounce back and continue to push for the top 4.
Yeah, and I think going off that, it's not a huge loss for them because I believe it's their second loss this season. So it's not that it's the loss of points that hurts. I think it's just going into this, the festive period. It'd be nice to have won that game for them. But yeah, like you said, I'm going to be very interested to see how they respond. Going into the other big game today, Liverpool United. You didn't get a chance to watch it, did you?
I did not.
It sucked for me. I'm sure it was awesome for a lot of people. Liverpool were the better team, like all game. There were probably about 4 moments where I was actually impressed with United's play. The moment that we scored a goal on actually was not one of them. I thought that on that specific play we looked real lifeless, and Jesse Lingard was just lucky he just happened to be there. And you can actually talk, I guess, about how great, it let Jesse Lingard smart enough to get in that position, but we shouldn't be relying on a goalkeeper to fumble the ball.
Right.
But what's more deeply troubling to me is the Pogba-Mourinho feud that seems to just be escalating with every week. And I know, as a Chelsea fan, you have very strong opinions about Mourinho. Do you kind of see a parallel between the Pogba-Mourinho feud and the Hazard-Mourinho feud?
I think that it's harder for players that are tasked to be asked to be more defensive when they're more technical and kind of like flair-oriented players. They don't necessarily fit into a Mourinho-style system, so I definitely see the parallels in that. But I would say the differences I see in it is that Pogba, even at Juventus, was tasked with defending to some extent.
You said Pirlo sitting behind him, so like...
Right. But yeah, they've not always... Players of that ilk have not always lined up with the Mourinho philosophy, so there's definitely parallels to be made there.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of talk right now about Pogba being bought back by Juventus, which, if you're Pogba, that looks real nice. You get to play with Dybala, you get to play with Ronaldo, you get to play with all your old mates there. That's where Pogba came about, really, was Juventus. But like I was saying, he was asked to do that defensive duty back then. But he also did have Andre Pirlo, Claudio Marchisio, 2 just phenomenal players who could sit back and shield him and allow him to go forward and do whatever.
I think more importantly, he had a manager that
liked him, respected him,
I think
listened
that's
to
the
him.
issue here, more so than...
It's just scary because United, they did not pay $100 million for Pogba just to sell him 3 years on.
Right.
That was very much a long-term investment. And it really scares me. At the end of the press conference today, Mourinho says, when asked why did you think about playing Pogba? Did you want to start him? And he says, no. Quick, curt, no. I have no desire to play Pogba. And then he says that I'm more confident in a Matic, Herrera, Lingard midfielder. Just scary because Lingard's not a center mid. He's an attacking mid. He works great on the wing, but I don't want him lining up next to Andre Herrera. And I think going forward for Manchester United, it's a very weak midfield, and it's only going to get weaker. Matic has played awful this season. Herrera is a great player. I won't knock Andre Herrera. And then Jesse Lingard just not a center mid. I don't know. Where do you see, I guess, the Mourinho saga ending at United? Do you think they get rid of him soon? Do you think they get rid of him at the end of the season? Do you think he's still coaching at United this time next year?
Definitely not by the end of this. This time next year. I'm interested to see if he'll last the rest of the season. I think it makes the whole giving him a new contract kind of a head scratcher when they did that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because to a lot of people it didn't necessarily seem merited, especially because there were certain things underneath the skin that were starting to come to a boil.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'll be interested to see. Honestly, I don't think if things continue on the way they are, even though the upper echelons of United have not given me a reason to think they will, I just can't see him lasting the rest of the season.
And you going back to that contract, it is a head scratcher because not to knock anyone in the Premier League last year, the Premier League was just kind of soft last year. That United team
very much so
should not really have finished second place. And I think that second place finish, coupled with winning 3 trophies the season before, I think United's board were more than welcome to just ignore everything else and think, hey, we're doing good right now. We're gonna be great next season. Let's go buy Diogo Dalot and Fred and Lee Grant. It'll be great. I think there's a lot. We were talking earlier about United's season derailing about November-ish of last year, and I just don't think they've ever recovered. I don't think the Pogba-Mourinho relationship has ever recovered from that point, because pretty much since then, it's just not been good. And I don't really think you can talk about Mourinho's downfall at United without mentioning Paul Pogba. I think he's very much a key cog in that. But that's enough about United. One thing that I really enjoyed about today's game, which hurt me to say, Xherdan Shaqiri was great. Bargain buy of the year so far for me.
Absolutely.
I think he went for like 12 million, 15 million
Yeah.
pounds. And he's he's just been branded his whole career as a troublemaker, a locker room cancer. He goes to Munich and he never really plays there. Has a phenomenal World Cup, goes to Inter, crashes out there, and then ends up at Stoke City. And I can think of several like Bojan or Deulofeu, who kind of that same career path.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work out for them, but Shaqiri kind of turning it around a little bit. But just a phenomenal game from him. I mean, great piece of work by Liverpool to snap him up.
Yeah, and he seems to be happy in the situation that he's
Yeah.
been. I was listening to an interview with him after the game, and he was almost like the interview was trying to coax him into kind of like acting upset that he's not a nailed-on starter, and he sounds like he's very much happy with the situation he's in right now. So yeah, it's great to see. When he's on his day, he's scored some of the most incredible goals I've seen.
Absolutely.
Like while I've been watching
Absolutely.
the game.
Absolutely.
So it's great to see him in a situation where he can score goals.
It is cool to see because one of the things I've watched about Jurgen Klopp was there were a lot of people out for Shaqiri this summer that wanted him. And Jurgen sat down and basically said, you won't start, but you'll have this role where you're not going to be a striker, you're not going to be an attacking mid, you're not going to be a winger. You're just going to be in the space. If there's space, I expect you to be there, whether it be on the left side, right side, or middle of the field. And you watch him play, and he loves it. He has such a confidence sitting behind Mane or Salah or Firmino, and feeding them the ball, playing ones and twos with them. Liverpool are just very scary this year. And I still do think City will win the title this year. I think City front to back, much better team than Liverpool. But I think Jurgen.
So much more depth as well.
I think on a head-to-head, Jurgen Klopp on his day can pull it out against Pep. And I've given Jurgen Klopp a lot of crap in the past. You can verify that. But he's finally starting to dominate the Premier League. His pressing system is insane. United retired after 20 minutes. You're running after the ball at a certain point. You can't get it back. And then when you do get it back, there's three guys running at you and you can't do anything. I don't know. I think Liverpool, 40% chance maybe winning the title this year. But speaking of the title, Arsenal losing this week, Liverpool winning this week means Liverpool are back on top of the table. Arsenal are still in fifth. It's just nice, I guess, for Chelsea and Tottenham.
Yeah.
Little breathing room doesn't hurt.
Definitely.
But
just to finish off that Liverpool point, I still think, like you said, City's going to win the title, but for me, I would edge it closer than 60-40 just because Klopp's shown real adaptability at Liverpool.
Absolutely.
When they lost Coutinho and he went to Barcelona, I mean, when you look at the rest of their midfield that they're left with, Wijnaldum, Henderson, Lallana, I don't think there's a goal between any of them. So he's kind of been able to mask a real kind of vacuum of creativity in that midfield. He's been able to just kind of adapt to what he has. Yeah. So yeah, I think that makes Liverpool a decent contender. I think it'll be down to the last game, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd
maybe
be nice.
The last two.
Not another Manchester City wins it in early April type thing.
Right. But yeah, back to the Arsenal loss. It definitely gave Chelsea some breathing room. It definitely gave Spurs some breathing room. And it's, like we said earlier, it's going to be interesting to see what Unai Emery can instill into his players and see if they can bounce back even stronger or if he thinks that there's going to be any changes necessary. I don't think so. I think we'll see kind of the ship steady, keep going the way it's going, just because we've seen with Guendouzi and Torreira and kind of like a revitalization of Granit Xhaka with Torreira being able to be tasked with more of the defensive duties. We've seen kind of a revitalization of that midfield, so I don't think there's too many changes that you can say. I think it definitely more had to do with the new manager bounce at Southampton, like you said. But yeah, the title race is looking far, far more interesting than it was last season, which is awesome.
And I know, we're going to talk about this more next week, but for Tottenham, we have not really talked a lot about them. Where do you see like them going forward? Where do you see them ending up at the end of May? I see them as the third place team. I think that's pretty much Tottenham's MO now, is being second or third best to everyone else. Not that, I mean, that is kind of a bad thing, but for a team like Tottenham, that they've never really had that before, at least in modern memory. Where do you see Tottenham finishing?
I totally agree that third, maybe fourth, is definitely where they're going to finish. I think they'll be in the Champions League. I think that's almost a guarantee to me, just because I think Mauricio Pochettino is just like that good of a coach. But Tottenham on a larger scale, I think it's just interesting because they seem like commercially and with how much money you make just being in the Premier League, I find it odd that they can't increase their player wage bill.
Yeah.
Especially when you see what some of the teams like Everton's, you know what I mean? What they're paying
Absolutely.
their players. So I think until they make that step, they're gonna kind of be stuck in that limbo of being, as you said, second or third best.
Moving on from the Premier League, there's not really a lot to talk about in Major League Soccer, so I think it'll just be a little brief segment. But besides, the big transfers that we're all expecting from Atlanta, Martinez, Almiron, Tata, Greg Garza to FC Cincy. I know that took you by surprise.
It did. It definitely did.
You wanna...
I mean, he's had a fantastic time at Atlanta United in the relatively short time that he's been there. I want to say he's been there, I don't think it was 2 full seasons. I think it was a season and a half. But not only that, he's become one of the best left backs in the league. So one of the best attacking left backs. Let me reiterate that. But I think it's a huge coup for Cincy, FC Cincy.
Absolutely.
Me and you several weeks ago were discussing it's going to be interesting to see what kind of moves they make in the offseason. It's going to kind of really show the intent they have of building their franchise. And I don't think if you're looking at it as just an isolated looking for a left back, I don't think they could have gone out and got a better one from the MLS.
Keeping it with Atlanta has pretty much now announced that Tata is not coming back. So they're beginning the manager search. And a couple names that have popped up, like Marco Bielsa from Leeds, Guillermo Barros Schleto from Boca Juniors, who has announced that he's not returning to Boca.
Right. That's key there.
And then another name that has popped up, Arsene Wenger. So out of those three, who would you like to see? I would like to see Boca's. I think Boca's manager is the most realistic.
Yes.
I think Bielsa is just a buzz name because of what he's done at Leeds. If you're not familiar with that, his playing style at Leeds has kind of taken, I believe they're in the championship. I think it's kind of taken the championship by storm. And I think Wenger is just thrown out there to, it was like the Lopetegui in the United States. Things. Like, how real is that? We may never know. But I think Schleto is going to end up being the new Atlanta United manager.
I would hope so. He would definitely be my first pick. Just because that's kind of the style they went with when they brought in Tata Martino. They brought in somebody that's very, very familiar with South America, South American talent, South American leagues, and somebody that has connections and an ability to bring in a high-caliber player from South America. So if they want to stick with that mold, stick with what they have proven is successful for them, I think going out and get Boca Juniors coach.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much more of a statement you can make than that hire.
Absolutely. So I think that wraps it up for this week. We're going to be back tomorrow with the Champions League draw and then kind of just but going over the group stages and then looking ahead to the first round of matchups. So as always, I'm Fuller.
I'm Jonah.